Hello everyone, my name is Danny. This review is for the movie called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It is a 2019 film, I saw it yesterday. It is rated R. It runs 2 hours and 39 minutes. Yep. It's directed by Quentin Tarantino, which is why I went to go see it. I figured it'd be a masterpiece. And it stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and Margot Robbie, and others. It's a large cast, it's a large film. Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood visits 1969 Los Angeles, where everything is changing, as TV star Rick Dalton and his longtime stunt double Cliff Booth make their way around an industry that they hardly recognize anymore. The ninth film from the writer-director features a large ensemble cast and multiple storylines and a tribute to the final moments of Hollywood's golden age. This is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Where to begin, where to begin? I have so much on my mind, I could probably do a 2 hour and 40-minute review of this 2 hour and 40-minute movie. But I will start with this. That I went to go see this film because of the cast. The previews on TV and online and the commercials, that the stuff that they were running to advertise this movie did not look interesting at all, and I was very afraid for the movie, but I didn't know what all was going to be the storyline or what was going to be entailed in the movie and how they were going to bring characters together. And so I was willing to give it a chance. I did not know that it was such a long movie. I never found that out. So I just kind of sat there, and that's how I usually like to go to movies. I don't like to know details or storyline or background or, I like to be fresh in it. So I enjoyed going to this movie and being surprised. It just wasn't a good surprise. So, anyways, I went to go see because of all the stars, right? So when I get in there, and I start watching this, immediately it loses me. Like, immediately. Like, it wasn't something, people that are doing reviews of this movie, they're going to talk about the three parts of it: the first, the second, and the third. And the first third of this movie just completely loses me. Like, nothing really happens to get you interested, to grab your attention. It just kind of starts, it goes at that pace, and then nothing really changes in the first part. So, really, it lost me right away. But well, I'm just gonna say the stuff that's on my mind because, I've been dwelling on this for a day now. I slept on it. I watched the only two reviews that I know that are online, which is Stuckman and Jeremy Johns, and I'll tell you what, I think Chris Stuckman is out of his freaking mind with this, and I know there's some other reviews by critics who consider themselves maybe the higher class of movie reviewers. Well, let me tell you, the normal people in the world who go to movies every week because they have the money to spend on it, like me, we're the ones who really need to be listened to. Chris Stuckman and others, if they're going to consider themselves such higher class because they're able to go to the premiere and this is what a real movie looks like, yeah, we don't need to listen to that. This movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes of complete boredom. For what it has in it and who it has in it, the way they talk is ridiculous. This is supposed to be like a glimpse into the Hollywood life, and people are talking to each other so dryly, like, oh, he needs to wake up to watch his TV show tonight. Oh, well, I'll make sure he wakes up to watch his TV show, but I just want to check on him. That's not real talking. That's not real people. That's what I thought we were going to get with this movie, is people being genuinely themselves outside of being an actor. And we didn't get that glimpse into their life. So if this is what they're like every day, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's just not. It's not true. Um, I thank everybody that watches this review and watches other reviews of normal people, everyday Americans that are hardworking and on the grind, because that maybe get 20 views on our videos. Because when we watch these movies and something like this, we're not going to connect, and we're not going to enjoy it, and we're not going to laugh at any of this supposedly funny stuff. And we're going to like the last 10 minutes or so, but that doesn't make the movie. And that's why I agree with someone like Jeremy Jahns, and I don't think he's somebody that thinks that he's higher than everybody else. He seems like a pretty low-key guy. So that's why I watch his reviews. I'm about ready to stop watching Chris Stuckman's. That being said, the reason why this movie is boring, if anybody's wondering, if you haven't seen it yet, thank you for watching this video, is that it has Leo and it has Brad, and it shows us playing these characters, these two guys, and it really focuses on them. The picture that got painted of this movie for people who wanted to know what it was going to be about, it really wasn't about that stuff. And it has this lady playing Sharon Tate, and she could have completely been out of the movie. That could have cut probably half an hour or 40 minutes, and then it would have been a lot smoother movie. It would have been 2 hours, would have been a lot more easy to handle. And, some of the stuff, Leonardo with this young girl actor that he has correspondence with in the movie, it made me smile. Like, it was cute, but it had its moments, but a movie is not built off just two moments. This is not Sleepless in Seattle, where the ending is the culmination of this glorious feel-good time. But it's not Lord of the Rings either, Lord of the Rings, as much as I, back in the day, when I was just, enduring them for the first time, thought they were slow, they weren't boring. There's stuff happening all the time. There was action, there was plot driving, there was new characters being brought in. If you want to talk about story structure with me and say that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is how you do it, you're out of your mind. Anybody who's anybody knows a movie is built off of surprise elements and keeping the audience interested. It's not off of this, you can do all this impressive stuff, but it doesn't mean that you're going to keep people interested. You have to be passionate about it, and you have to, buy into it yourself. And when I see people just doing stuff that seems so rehearsed and so over dramatic for no reason, then I'm just thinking you're Will Ferrell and you're just in a different form, and I honestly can't remember laughing at this movie except for the last scene. And that's what everybody's going to be talking about, is if you enjoyed yourself for 2 hours and a half before the final scene, then your final scene is going to clinch it for you. But I just can't understand how anybody's going to like this movie. It's, it has these people in it, and for it to be so uneventful is just ridiculous. Do something. Bring something into it. I could, if I were to watch this movie again, it would be one of those where I would just be writing down, I'd be pausing it all the time because I'd be writing down critique notes the whole time. And, just off the top of my head, because it's such a long movie, the way that they fast forward the timeline, they don't get to explain things. They leave things unopened. They leave things to, different opinions on what happened after the last scene. And just because they bring one thing back at the end of the film doesn't forgive everything else. You need to, have seen, and if you're going to skip over something like, 3 years later, then you need to give us some kind of insight as to why these characters are different 3 years later, why you're bringing us to that time period and not just 10 years later. Just bring us 10 years later. But there needs to be some kind of, answers to things. And so I think that was my biggest problem watching this was, I was disappointed that it was so boring with Leo and Brad in there and this other girl that just did not need to be in the movie. And I didn't really understand why some other people were around, but they were just in there to be in there. But this is not, you know, as good as other Tarantino films. It's just not. It's not a good mystery. It's not a good surprise element. The acting, Leo and Brad are Leo and Brad, but they're not gonna save this film just because they were, good actors in the past other films. They're amazing actors. They're two of the best right now. But I just don't think that this is what we want to see out of a 2 hour 40 minute movie. If you're gonna, I will give people that like this movie one thing, that if they cut out Sharon Tate's character and her walking around doing nothing, sitting at this movie for so long just watching herself, if they cut her out and this movie was like 2 hours, and maybe it might be a little bit more interesting. I think I would have liked that version of this movie, because then it move along with Leo and Brad. It would have some kind of story structure that kept moving because it was focusing on two characters, and then we would have had the end. But the 40 minutes, I'm sure there's 40 minutes that could have been cut out of this movie. So one last thing I just wanted to point out. I don't know how many people are going to talk about this, but the first thing that happened to me after this was I went to my mother's house and I asked her, hey, did you happen to, know this actor that Leo DiCaprio played? So she looked him up. She's like, oh, maybe. And apparently, Cliff and Leo's characters that they play are not real actors. So this whole movie is not based off of two real people, but we get to hear other names of real people like Dean Martin and Sharon Tate. So I just really think this movie's confusing, and if you're gonna make this movie, why not just make it off of two real people's lives that had interactions with each other? I mean, that just tells me that the last scene probably isn't a real part of a true story. And if it was, if that really happened, if the last scene of this movie really happened to somebody in real life that was in Hollywood as a real actor, that somebody I knew, then that would have so much more connection. But to know that, that Leo and Brad's characters were not real in real life, and they didn't really have, somebody I knew didn't really have this situation happen to them, just completely clinched it for me that I have no connection to this movie. I don't care about these higher ups in Hollywood. I don't care what they do. I don't care that they go out to eat. The last part of the movie where this commentator was consistent on telling us what time it was and where this person was that I had forgotten their name from 2 hours ago, and why they were out to eat and what they were doing and what they were talking about. I was so disconnected from this, and I think most people are. I think that's the story of the day here, is that nobody that I know of is going to connect to this movie. There's no emotional attachment. It's not a true story about real people. It's so long and it has weird stuff in it that just doesn't matter. There's no element of surprise. There's no twist. There's no intrigue. There's nothing. It's just almost a documentary with the commentary. And I really didn't appreciate that along the way. It just kind of made things worse. So, Brad Pitt's best scene in the desert was mildly entertaining, but to stick it in the middle of this atrocious movie just kind of was like, oh, okay, well, at least we got that. And then the ending, and that's it. So I'm going to give, obviously, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood my lowest grade, which is a D. And I understand what it takes to make this movie. I understand how much it cost. But to have these people in your movie and to have nothing in it is ridiculous. I mean, I can't, this is not Shakespeare. I don't need you to have great acting in it. I need you for it to make it entertaining. It's a Tarantino film. Have some more people dying, have some more intrigue, have some more people say some stuff about each other, something, anything. Thanks a lot, guys. My name is Danny. I'm going to give a D to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you like this or any of my other videos, try and get something to watch. Like and subscribe to my channel if you would. And try to enjoy your movies. Thanks.